You are in a relationship, you are still in the room, but decisions are being made without you. Plans are being formed around you. Conversations are happening near you, but not with you. You haven't been removed, you have been repositioned, moved from the center of someone's life to the margin. And the most disturbing part, it happened so gradually that you adjusted to the edges without ever realizing you were pushed there. And that's what makes being sidelined so psychologically insidious. It doesn't feel like exclusion, it feels like a slow fade. One day you are consulted on everything, the next year you are informed after decisions have already been made. 1 month you are at the center of their social plans. A year later, you find out about their dinner play or dinner party from a photo someone else posted. You were not uninvited. You were just not considered. And there is a violence in not being considered that polite people never acknowledge because it leaves no fingerprints. No one yelled at you. No one shut you out directly. They just built a version of their life where your input became optional. Your presence became decorative. And your feelings became an afterthought that nobody schedules time for. This is sidelining. It's not abandonment, it's marginalization inside your own relationship. And today I'm going to show you exactly how it works, why it's almost impossible to detect from the inside, and the signs that it's already restructured your entire dynamic. So here's the mechanism. Sidelining doesn't begin with malice. It begins with efficiency. Your partner discovers that decisions are easier without your input. Plans are smoother without the negotiation. Emotional processing is faster with someone else. And little by little, they start routing around you, not because they want to hurt you, because including you became friction. And once someone starts experiencing your involvement as friction rather than value, the marginalization becomes automatic. They don't decide to sideline you. They just stop deciding to include you. And the absence of inclusion, repeated 1,000 times, produces the same results as deliberate exclusion. You wake up one day on the periphery of a life you thought you were at the center of. A man, 46, married 15 years, successful career, good father, a kind of person who described himself as fully involved in his family life, until one evening when his 13-year-old daughter mentioned a vacation his wife had been planning. He looked at his wife and said, "What vacation?" And she said, "Oh, I've been talking to Sarah and David about renting that lake house in August, and I thought I told you." She hadn't. And when he pressed gently, it turned out she had already researched the property, discussed dates with another couple, priced out activities for the kids, and mentally committed to the trip, all without a single conversation with him. Not out of secrecy, out of momentum. Momentum that she had built the entire plan in collaboration with her friend group, and he was going to be informed once the details were finalized, like a guest in his own family vacation. When he told me that, that's when I realized I wasn't a partner in the planning of our life. I was a stakeholder who received updates. And when they dug into it, the pattern went far deeper than vacations. Their daughter's school's choice, his wife had decided months before telling, positioning it as a discussion where the conclusion was already reached. Their kitchen renovation, she had consulted her brother, her designer friend, and 3 Pinterest boards before showing him the options that were really just one pre-selected outcome. Their social calendar, organized entirely between his wife and her friends, with his attendance assumed but never requested. He wasn't being shut out, he was being managed. Included just enough to prevent confrontation, but excluded from every meaningful stage of the decision-making process. His role in his own life had been reduced to ratification. He didn't get a vote, he got a notification. And the worst part, he had been so accustomed to this dynamic that he only recognized it when a 13-year-old accidentally exposed it. So what creates this pattern at a psychological level? There is a concept in organizational psychology called role erosion. It was originally studied in workplaces, how employees gradually lose responsibilities, influence, and decision-making power, not through demotion, but through slow, informal exclusion from the processes that matter. So their title stays the same, their access technically remains, but the actual flow of information, power, and the relevance quietly routes around them until they occupy a position with no functional authority. The same thing happens in relationships. One partner, usually the more socially active, more decisive, more emotionally connected one, begins to consolidate decision making, not aggressively, organically. They consult friends, they make plans, they process decisions internally or with external advisors, and the other partner's role erodes from co-pilot to passenger to cargo. Still on the plane, no longer involved in where it's going. What accelerates this is a psychological phenomenon called perceived incompetence attribution. Over time, the consolidation partner begins to unconsciously believe that the sidelined partner can't contribute at the same level. Not because of evidence, but because the pattern itself creates the perception. When someone hasn't been consulted for months, their opinions start to feel irrelevant. Not because they are, but because the system stopped testing them. The consolidating partner thinks that they don't really have strong opinions about this anyway, and that's not true. They stopped expressing opinions because the channel for expressing them was closed. It's a self-reinforcing loop. Exclude someone long enough and their silence becomes the justification for further exclusion. The quieter they become, the more irrelevant they appear. And the more irrelevant they appear, the easier it becomes to sideline them without guilt. 5 signs that you are being sidelined in your own relationship. Sign number 1. You find out about decisions after they have been made. Not all decisions, the ones that matter. Financial choices, parenting strategies, social commitments, home changes, career moves that affect the family. If you are consistently learning about outcomes rather than participating in process, you are not a partner. You are an audience. And the distinction between those two things is the distinction between a relationship and a broadcast. Sign number 2. Your opinion is requested but not weighted. They ask what you think, you give your answer, and then they do what they are going to do anyway, every time. The question was never a consultation, it was a formality, a box to check so they can say, I did ask you. This is the most sophisticated form of sidelining because it creates the illusion of collaboration while delivering the reality of unilateral control. You are not being ignored, you are being performed at. And performances are for audiences, not partners. Sign number 3. Their inner circle knows things that you don't. Their best friend knows about the job offer before you do. The mother knows about the marital tension before you have even named it yourself. Their colleague knows about the doubt that they are carrying, and you are still operating under the assumption that everything is fine. When your partner's emotional and informational inner circle excludes you, that's not privacy, that's architecture. Architecture they have built a decision-making ecosystem that functions without you. You are not inside that circle, you are adjacent to it. And adjacent is just a polite word for irrelevance, by the way. Sign number 4, you have been assigned a lane. You handle the finances, They handle everything else. You deal with the kids' logistics, they deal with the kids' emotional lives. You have been given a department and it feels like contribution, but what it actually does is contain you. It limits the scope of your influence to a functional zone, while the broader life, the vision, the direction, the social world, the emotional landscape is managed entirely without your involvement. Lanes feel like partnership. They are actually partitions, and the person who assigned them is the person who controls the map. Sign number 5. You feel a low-grade anxiety that you can't source. Something feels off, but you can't name it. You are not fighting, you are not being mistreated, and there is persistent hum of unease, a feeling of being slightly out of step with your own life. That's your nervous system detecting the misalignment between your perceived role and your actual role. You believe you are a central figure. Your nervous system knows that you have been moved to the margin. And that dissonance between what you think you are and what you actually are in the dynamic creates a chronic low-level anxiety that no amount of reassurance resolves. Because the problem isn't in your head, it's in the structure. So here's the uncomfortable reality. Being sidelined doesn't require a villain. It requires one partner who's slightly more decisive and one who's slightly more accommodating. That's it. The decisive one doesn't set out to marginalize, they set out to get things done. And the accommodating one doesn't set out to disappear, they set out to avoid conflict. But those two instincts, efficiency and avoidance, are the perfect ingredients for a relationship where one person runs everything and the other person slowly becomes a bystander in their own life. And if you are the one who has been sidelined, I know the temptation. The temptation is to explode, to list every decision that was made without you, to prove the pattern. But explosions don't reverse sidelining. They confirm the narrative that including you is difficult. It must have been a mistake, that your involvement creates friction, that it's easier without you, that the pattern wins either way unless you change the approach entirely. So if you are in this dynamic, the repair starts with one sentence, and that should be said calmly, without accusation, without a list of evidence. You say that I feel like I am being informed about our life instead of including in it, and I need that to change. That sentence does something critical. It names the pattern without attacking the person. It creates a clear before and after. It places the responsibility for change on the dynamic, not on either individual. From that point forward, inclusion must become intentional, not automatic, intentional. Decisions get discussed before they are made. Plans get built together, not presented for approval. Opinions get weighed, not collected for a show. But here's the condition. If you say that sentence and the response is dismissal, like you are overreacting, I always include you, this is how we work, then you are not dealing with an oversight. You are dealing with a system that benefits from your marginalization. And systems don't change because you ask politely. They change because you stop participating in them. You were never meant to be a footnote in your own story. You were never designed to ratify decisions someone else already made and call it a partnership. If you have been living on the margins of a life you helped build, the edges weren't where you chose to stand. They are where you were gradually moved. And the moment you see that clearly, fully, without apology, is the moment you stop being sidelined. Not because anyone gave you the permission to step back into the center, but because you stopped waiting for permissions that was never theirs to grant.